and share my screen. So the way I built the slideshow is interactive links within the slideshow and also links to other websites where you can get to answers to questions people are having. On slide 2 is sort of like a table of contents, and these are the topics that I thought people would have questions about. Also things that the ITFs talked about that are causing some trouble. Or that are frequently asked questions. And on each of the sections or each of the links that you go to, there might be additional links. So for instance, some of you may be using folders already or may not be using folders and aren't sure how to get to that. There's a video on the side. So wherever you see this image or icon, that's going to take you to either the Seesaw, probably the Seesaw YouTube channel, and it has a link to a video that was provided by Seesaw to answer some of those questions. I'm going to assume that everybody has either created some of their own or used some activities from the library, so this session is probably not going to talk about how to create activities. If that's something you still need help with, you could watch the recording from the first session, or you could use the links provided in the first slideshow to work a little bit more on creating activities. So folders are a great idea. Most people put work into folders based on subject, but you don't have to do it that way. I know Donna Wells shared with me a person who's using folders as a way to try to keep track of assignments for the day. And that may not necessarily be, might not be needed soon. There is an update coming that would allow for an activities calendar as well as a journal calendar. And so that's one of the things I was going to talk about. Most of the time when you get to your journal, it's in what's called feed view. That's this look right here. And it puts all the activities that were sent in by your students in order from the oldest at the bottom to the newest at the top. There's also a calendar view that some people might not be familiar with. And this is a calendar of activities that were turned in and reviewed by me. So if a student posted work, it would show up the day that it's posted as soon as I review them. So unfortunately, I don't have a lot of work in my calendar view. I'm going to go back to the slideshow and talk about that next. Calendar view in Seesaw is only available at this point in your journal. When the next update happens, there will also be a calendar view in your activities. I think that will help our students tremendously. One of the teachers that I work pretty closely with mentioned that families tell her, and I didn't realize until recently, that when a student goes to their activities section, they don't see the stuff that we see as teachers down here at the bottom. So a student in her class has several activities. The family's confused. What activity am I supposed to do which day? And how do I know which ones he's done and hasn't done? They don't have this information that's below the add response. They don't know as a family when that activity was posted, like assigned to the student. So one suggestion was to put the date in the title. When you post this activity, to start with the date. And that way families would know when it was assigned. Eventually, there should be a calendar at the top, and then the families could just click on that calendar like they can in Journal, and it would show the activities that were posted that day. Whoops, get to the right page. I did highlight in yellow in my slideshow that they need to remember that this number, this 82, doesn't mean that 82 things were posted that day. It means that the students turned that work in and it's been reviewed by the teacher and it landed in the journal on that day. There was a suggestion on one of the Facebook feeds that teachers could use this as a way to take attendance. So for instance, if I click on a day in my calendar where 82 things came in and were reviewed, it does show the kids' names for each activity. So for instance, this fake student Jimmy turned in 3 things, Lisa turned in 1, Caroline supposedly turned in 3. So if you're using Seesaw as a way to take attendance to see who did turn in work, you need to remember that it's only going to be counted in these 82 items if you as a teacher have reviewed them and approved it. That's when it lands on the journal. You can click on an activity. If I click on this activity that was turned in, that I could go ahead and find out more about it. I could see when it, as a teacher, when it was assigned, and any notes or other things that I added to that. So that was one of the things in the last couple of days that I think has been pretty helpful. If I go back to slide 2, keep me on track. There has been some questions and a few people that have had some trouble with the difference between multimedia instructions and adding a student template. So I actually prepared this video to tell the difference between the two. When you're creating an activity in Seesaw, all the information at the top, the title, the directions, your voice directions, and this multimedia instructions or example, that's considered part of the directions. The student work would have to be down here. So if you are not posting anything as a student template, they're not going to have something to work on top of. The student template is where the students would get their work pages. If you don't post anything there, when they click on add response, what they're going to get is an empty, they're going to get choices of sending you a video or a link or a file from their computer, and they're not going to have an image to work on top of. So this video is a little bit longer than some of the YouTube videos, but it's going to very clearly tell the difference between a multimedia instructions and what a student template looks like. The skills feature is something a lot of people have been asking about. I have, like I said, a fake Seesaw account, and I don't have real students, so I do add skills to my activities. You can add it as you build it, or you can add the skills ahead of time by going into your class settings and managing skills. One of the things that you might want to think about, some people didn't realize, is that you can change the rating scale. I think by default, it shows up as 4 stars, but I know that some of our K2 teachers usually have to grade on a 3-point system, either a 1, 2, or 3. So you can change that to 3 stars and then select the colors for those stars, like red, yellow, and green, which matches some of our testing that we do. When the students turn the work in, there is a difference in how you can see the assignment when you're grading on a MacBook compared to an iPad. And this was explained to me by somebody who actually does the grading all the time, is that there's an extra click you have to make on the MacBook. You would click on the pink panel or banner that comes at the bottom that tells you how many things you have to review. And as you're looking at each item, if you wanted to mark the skills, you have to click on the hat that shows how many skills are attached to that. Or if there are no skills attached, you can click on it and tag the skills at that point. And then this window comes up where you can click on the 1 star, 2 stars, or 3 stars, and then the green check mark to mark it as saved. On an iPad, it comes in and those skills are, the short name for that skill is showing right below the student's work. And so you can go ahead and click on the 1, 2, or 3 stars right there while you're looking at the pages. You would use the arrow to flip through, and then click on the star, and then click on approve or send back. On your skills section, you will, if you've been using skills and grading with skills, this page would come up, and it's called the skill summary. On the left, you have all the students' names, and at the top, you have all the skills that you have been tagging in the activities for that class. The number shows how many activities were turned in that had that particular skill tagged. So for this fake student over here, Sheila, on the skill of number bonds, she's turned in 12 activities that were tagged. And as her teacher graded those 12 activities, the majority of the skills came up with a score of 3. So the average of all those stars added together puts her in a category that shows that she has pretty well mastered number bonds. I know that teachers could use this page to do their grading when they're doing their report cards. The students that have red, no matter how many numbers of activities were tagged, show that that particular child is having trouble with that skill, which happens to be making 10. If it's marked yellow, that means the child is in the middle, has an average of 2 stars on activities that were tagged. And then of course, green for this particular teacher stands for students that are showing mastery on that particular skill. You can, if you had to, export an informational sheet that shows the name of the skill. I think it might show the actual activities named and the dates that they were given, and then the score that the teacher gives. I know one of the questions that came in from one of our kindergarten teachers for this session is, how can I print out a report that shows how my students are doing in Seesaw? They worked with their ITF and they were able to print an activity report, but it only goes back 7 days. If you use the skills feature, I think you could get a report that would show, at least for all the activities that had tagged skills, you could click here and it would print out what's called a CSV file, and you could either add that into an Excel file, change it into an Excel file or a Google Sheet, and then you would have a printout for that particular child if you picked the child, or if you just picked the whole class, it would show a sheet. It would show information about all the activities that had tagged skills and how those students were scored by you as a teacher on that particular skill. You can select the student. So on the left over here, if I picked the student's name and then I click on this activity, actually it's not on the left, it would be over here. If I'm in the row where the student's name is and the column where that skill is at, I can click on this cell and it will pull up an image like this of the 2 activities that were tagged with that particular skill. And then if I click on it, it would open those up. The score is down at the bottom and the teacher notes are down at the bottom. I can also click on print PDF and it will actually print images like this that show at least the cover slide of that activity. It would show your comments and your score for that activity. And it also has a PDF, a QR code that could be scanned to take a direct link back to the activity where you would be able to see the actual student's work, or you would be able to hear the students' video or audio if they added video or audio to that image. So that's the section on skills. If you have more questions about that, you could talk with your ITF or post it in our Google form, and I'll be glad to cover that. The next item I had on our slideshow was something that I learned while we were doing this, and I discovered in my first session will not work for me to demonstrate during a Zoom. So I usually use screenshots to add to my Seesaw activities. I prefer to do that instead of PDFs because the PDF comes in the size of the page, and I would rather zoom in on my activities and get closer and smaller parts of the page. Like I might take a screenshot of the top of the PDF of the page and a screenshot of the bottom and turn it into 2 pages on Seesaw. So what I've done in the past is I use my Control or Command Shift 4 or Command Shift 5 to take pictures of whatever image I want to add to the activity. While preparing for this session and getting ready to answer some of your questions, I discovered this add-on that you could add to Google Chrome. I did try to demonstrate it in the first session and it didn't come up. It won't work while I have Zoom running, but this does show a little bit about it. When you add that to Google Chrome, it looks like this, and it's called Post to Seesaw. The add-on is called Reflect in Seesaw Extension. And basically what happens is you have the image on the screen of what you want to capture. You click on the extension at the top, and then you have a choice between recording or capturing the entire screen or a part of the screen. So if you click part of the screen, you get a little box or a little handle that you could draw around the part that you want to capture. And then whatever you've captured will either automatically go in as a post if nothing is open in Seesaw. But if you have Seesaw open and you're in an activity like this and you've already got your template started and you have a page that's just empty, if this is open when I use Reflect in Seesaw, when I do that screenshot, it's automatically going to land on my page as an image. And I think it is already locked in place. So you could unlock it and resize, but then you could add directions and other information. It saves the step of doing a screenshot, then going to upload, then searching your drive to find that screenshot you just saved. It automatically jumps right into Seesaw. If you're not signed in and you don't have an activity open, it would automatically jump to a new window and it would ask you to sign into Seesaw. And then it's going to assume that that image you just captured is going to be a post that would just show up in the journal, not as part of a student template like I have right here. So to me, that was pretty exciting. That's going to save me some time in the future. I know I'm going quickly, but I want to try to cover as many of this as I can. Hidden folders and assessments is something that, of course, I don't do, not being a classroom teacher anymore, but it is something that could be helpful, especially for some of our virtual academy teachers that are going to be doing their math assessments and other informal assessments on students, that you might want to keep those as put into a hidden folder. Hidden folders is available a couple of places. If you're managing folders, it's up at the top. And I do think that yesterday when I was messing around and I was looking in my folders, I did have to turn on that hidden folder. So it showed me all the folders that I added. And yesterday I did add one called assessments. And then down at the bottom, I had to click right here to turn on this toggle so that I did have hidden folders turned on in this particular class I was working on. One of the things that was suggested is if you're doing an assessment, an informal assessment that the students are not going to work on their own, like maybe you want to have during your Zoom time, you could have breakout sessions and students go into a breakout sessions and you join them in each room and ask them their sight words, for example. It was suggested that you put this as a post in your journal as the sample student. And then when you start in your Zoom, you have Zoom running on your computer, on your iPad, you have that journal opened and you copy and edit this page and then you mark as the student's reading, whether they're getting it right or wrong, take notes, whatever you want. And then when you save it, you're going to save it not under the sample student, but under that student's name. You can tag a folder like assessments and tag the hidden folder. So if you look down here at the bottom, this one is in the assessments folder, but it's also listed as private. So the families wouldn't get to see it. It was suggested that this would be a great place to put those math assessments that are going to go out. But also something like this, it's not a big deal if the families see it, but they could be erasing your marks or changing your marks, and then it would be difficult for you to go back and see what the original looked like. If it's put in your hidden folders, then the families don't see it at all. If you don't create that hidden folder or pick the hidden folder as the activity is made, you can always go back at the bottom, and just like you can edit which students and which classes an activity goes to, you can edit the folder it goes in, and you could also edit the skills after the activity's been created. Okay, new topic. Similar to hidden folders, there's also the option of having private comments. Maybe you have an activity that you want to make a note just for yourself and you don't want the families or to be able to see. You can click on comments and there's a section for private comments. It'll show up as a blue mark for you, but the families won't see it at all. And then you can type in whatever you want to. It could be a score on an assessment. It could be a note like this one where they were trying to do a student reading and they could tell that the mother was basically whispering the words to the child. And so that score that the child would have gotten on this assessment or this private read isn't really accurate if the family's helping at that point. So they've just made a note and the only person who sees that is the teacher. This one is pretty important if you have students moving back and forth between virtual academy and regular A-day, B-day schedule. We discovered a little bit of a change, and I think it happened this summer. In the past, some of us didn't pay a whole lot of attention when assigning an activity. We just let it be assigned to the whole class. And in the past, when a new student joined, they would not get that activity if they were not part of the class when the activity was assigned. Now, since this summer, if you don't make this change, if it stays checked at the top where all students in the class are getting that activity, when a new student joins, they automatically, as soon as they land in your class, end up with all the activities that you've ever assigned to that class. So one way around it is when you're assigning, let me get out of what I'm in. I don't know how to get out of it. So when Jimmy shows up in your class and it's day 51, there might be lots and lots and lots of activities already down here. If I didn't turn these off or edit these in a way that it doesn't go to my entire class, it's a post. Go to activities, sorry. All these activities that are already showing in my class, if I didn't change it so that it's not going to the entire class, then that new student is going to have all those activities. I'm going to have to go back in here and turn off at least my sample student so that this also goes off. And then of course, if Jimmy just showed up and he's got 51 activities that he really doesn't have to do because they were assigned before he showed up, I would also have to turn off Jimmy's name. Let's say my new student is myself, Christine. So I'm going to have to go in to each activity in my feed and turn off that particular kid's name for every activity that's there. Or from now on, I'm going to make sure that I don't turn on, that I don't assign it to all students in the class, that I'm going to turn off my sample student, and that also turns off all students in the class. That way, when new students add after today, they will not get work that was assigned before they showed up. And then I'd have to hit the green check mark and save. When you're creating a new activity, if you pick something new, you guys probably already know this, but let's just say I'm going to pick this one and I'm going to assign it. Instead of, turn that off, go away dictionary. Instead of just clicking here and clicking assign, I need to go ahead and edit my students and turn off the sample student, which also turns off this option that all students in the class would get the activity. I can also pick the folder it's going to go in, and if I want it to be private, I would click here as well as a folder down here. And if I want to add any skills, I can add those before the assignment is made. Of course, I'm just not even paying attention. Then when I click assign, it would go on. And it would not show up for every student who joins my class anytime for the rest of the year. So that one's pretty important to pay attention to. We had one question come in, which was how can I do the daily check-in without having to do a new post each day? So my daughter, Erin Moody, made this morning, and I shared the link to her activity. Basically, the way it's going to work is the students would open the activity. They would drag the smiley or the sad face or the frowny face to the page for the date, and then they would save it as a draft. And you would just have to talk to your students about not hitting the green check mark. If they did turn it in, then you could just send it back to them. So in their journal feed, I thought I did one. Let me try it again. So I'm going to say, I'm pretty happy today. Then I hit my draft. This activity is going to stay It'll show up in their journal feed as a draft. They just click on show draft and click on edit, and then they pick the smiley face for the next day. Maybe I'm extra tired tomorrow because I worked really hard today, and then I hit draft. And that way the teacher doesn't have to reassign that each time. They did one assignment and it's over here. I think if they go back to activities, it would still stay there unless they hit the green check mark. So if they were to turn it in before the end of the month, you would have to just return it, send it back to them. And I thank Erin Moody for helping us with that question. Seesaw blog. Not a lot of us are using a blog. I personally liked it, especially when I was in the library. I turned on the blog and I used it as a way for students to sort of recommend books to each other. So it was sort of like their book report area. You would set up the blog in your class settings for blogs. You just turn this on. I don't let the students post to the blog themselves. Under blog settings, you can show folders if you want to. You can allow the students to make comments to each other, and then I do password protect mine. Similar to a lot of teachers, a lot of times when this is like a generic password that I am going to share with my families, I just use my last name. So if you click on the password, it's going to show you that my blog's password is my last name, Snow. Then when I am in my journal feed, or I'm reviewing activities, if I find something that I want to add to the blog, like this one has already been added, all you have to do is click on that last icon that looks like the world, and then it'll tell you which items have been published to the blog. The nice thing about the blog is that not only do they see the work, but that video audio option is there. So if they were visiting the blog, they would hear the kids actually share their work. To a parent, the blog doesn't look like this because I'm a member of this class. I see these things on the side. As a parent, they would see just from here over. It would look like a web page, and that you would share this link. I know that at least one person I work with has in their inbox, they have things like this, and what they have is maybe just one image. Like this is how you would get to my Zoom if you want to join a meeting. This is where you would click to see my Zoom recordings. And then I could have another post that says, click here to visit our blog. The students don't have to do that. They just click on blog and it takes them automatically to the blog. I did ask Erin to share one more thing, which is her class and other first grade classes at Salem, I think, are all using their class blog as part of their dojo reward system. So they have some Zoom events for class points, but then the students can purchase a couple of other things that have to do with Zoom and class blog. I watched yesterday where a student was doing a magic trick on her blog. I think it must have been a show and tell event. So Erin Moody has a Google form filled out or set up so her students can ask to use one of their award their points. And so a student would say, I want to share a joke for my 50 dojo points, and then they post an activity or a video, and then Miss Moody sends it to the blog, and that's how they've earned their reward. So that was a couple other ways you could use it. It actually could be like a digital newsletter, and you could post to the blog what you would have normally sent home in a Take Home Tuesday, a newsletter idea, where it's basically the news for your class, and it could get posted to your blog. The book reports I talked about, you could ask the students each month or whatever to pick out their favorite piece of writing or their favorite item in their portfolio that they'd like to share with each other. For instance, I know some people that are using blogs had an activity at the beginning of the year where the students had to introduce themselves, and they put a video in the middle, and they had some things around the side of the videos where they told their favorite animal and their favorite friend. And it was a way for students, especially in Virtual Academy, to get to know each other even though they're not in class together. Since countywide, the option to see each other's work in Seesaw has been turned off. The only way you would be able to share work between students would be for you to turn on the blog or to have some other website that you're going to post to. The problem is you can't post student images and or student work without permission to something that's considered open to the World Wide Web. The Seesaw blog is not. It would be similar to Class Dojo, where the only people who could get to this blog are the students who are in the class and any family or person that you've shared your password with. But that really should be turned on under settings to turn on a password, and then you would share the link right here and then whatever the password is. I know that in my daughter's class, she has on her inbox to the family, she only has a couple of things. They can get to their Zoom, they can get to their class blog, they can get to her office hours, some other things. And one of them is for the families, is they would click in their class app, they would click on inbox, and then there would be a link directly to the blog. And they already have been told what the password is. Okay, this is my newest favorite thing, is that one of the updates this summer allowed us to link Seesaw activities into either things like Google Classroom or a list that teachers are preparing in maybe like a Bitmoji classroom or a slideshow that you share each week. When you create an activity and assign it to your class, you can click on the 3 dots and you can copy the student link, and then you can post that. If you're in Google Classroom, you would post it as part of an assignment. And instead of, I did pull that up, let's say, just to demonstrate how quick and easy it is, if I want to post this activity, I would just click on Get Student Link. I would copy it. I would go into my Google Classroom, click on Classwork, and create an assignment. I did one earlier, so I don't necessarily have to do it now, but I can edit that activity and show you what it looks like. I just did a bare bones title, but I should type some instructions, and then I put that link down here. I decide which students are going to get it, how much it's worth, if it's going to go under a topic, use a rubric just like you would for other Google Classroom assignments. Then when I save it, when the students click on that link, it's going to take them into Seesaw. And they all have accounts, I guess now from pre-K through 5. The students don't see anything below this gray line. They see the directions. They see my multimedia example, which is me demonstrating how to do the math problems in that particular activity. They can play the directions, and they don't see down here the teacher part where other kids have turned their work in. They just hit add response. And if you noticed, it didn't ask me to sign in. Our students already have accounts in K5, pre-K through 5. The only people who might need some help with this is Virtual Academy teachers who are not currently using Seesaw. You might want to get with your ITF and let them know that you would like to have your Seesaw class set up correctly. The Virtual Academy teachers are not all generating from PowerSchool like it's supposed to. So some of the ITFs have had to build classes for Virtual Academy teachers in pre-K through 5. Just let your ITF know if you want some help with that. It would also work if you were using a Google slideshow where you have links to activities for the day. All you would do is type in your slideshow like daily check-in and then create a hyperlink to that activity. And when the students click on it, they don't have to sign into Seesaw. They don't even have to go through ClassLink. It takes them right to that page that you've linked to with that student, where you click on Get Student Link. Okay, the last part of this is me requesting that maybe some of us think about a little bit more creative ways to use some of the websites and applications that we have access to. Seesaw integrates nicely with lots and lots and lots of other programs. This is just a few. These are probably mostly iPad apps, but if you clicked on the link here, it's the Help Center at Seesaw, and it tells all the programs and websites that Seesaw integrates with nicely. It also tells how you would save it. So if you were using Numbers, you would create something in Numbers, and then you would share and you would open in another app and then pick Seesaw. So basically, this is a list of things that students could be given assignments in, and then they share it back to you through Google or through Seesaw. and very easy to turn those things in. Most of these, they're going to save it. If they're in an iPad, they're going to save it to the camera roll. If they're on a Chromebook or a MacBook, they would save it to their drive, and then they would just link that back into Seesaw. The last few pages are things you might need to help you get started, or if you have questions. If you're not already a member of the Seesaw Teachers Group, you might want to apply to be part of that. This is a link to the Seesaw Help Center where you could search for questions that you have, questions and answers. Donna Wells shared this with me. It's a slideshow that Angela from Seesaw is adding pages to as part of the Seesaw community. And so each of these is a quick question and answer thing with some little information or feedback. These get posted quite frequently on this, the Seesaw Facebook group. You'll see posts that look just like this, but then these are a collection where she's answered questions that have come into the Seesaw Help Center with some more information. So that's also provided in our slideshow today. I did put a link in here because I know that third grade, third and fourth are using Chromebooks currently, but soon some more grade levels across Burke County will be getting Chromebooks, and you may be having to make a switch in second grade from iPads to Chromebooks. So here's some suggestions from Matt Miller, the author of Ditch That Textbook, of how to use Seesaw specifically with Chromebooks. There also is opportunities for you to get more credit for Seesaw if you need videos, quick videos, just really fast about some topics. The YouTube channel has a section that is called Beyond the Basics, and these are like 5-minute videos. I do caution you, if you're on the Seesaw YouTube channel, to pay attention to the date the video was made. After the last couple of updates, some older videos are not really that relevant anymore because the features have changed so much over the last 2 or 3 updates. So if it were me, I'd be real cautious of any video that was made in 2018 or before. It would be more likely to be out of date. One of the best places to get some more information is to start in the Pioneer Training Program. The Pioneer Training Program consists of 1 hour of training in their first course, and after you finish that first course, you then have access to all of these other topics. These videos are a little bit longer. The ones at the top are about 20 to 30 minutes each, maybe up to 45 minutes. And then last summer, they had what they called Seesaw Connect, and it's sessions like we're doing right now where a Seesaw teacher was asked to talk about these topics. And these ones are more like 45 to 50 minutes long. If you finish the Seesaw training course, you get a certificate. And then if you participate in any of these extra activities, there's a certificate at the end that you could turn in for CEUs. This one's been shared for a long time, but I'm not sure whether you have been introduced to it or not, so I wanted to share it here. It is a Google slideshow created by these 2 lovely people who have been willing to share lots of great things. There's directions at the top, but basically you can click on a topic and it will jump you to that slide. And here's the section on math facts. And it has, this one's a scratch and solve activity. It's already designed for you. So what you would do is click on this image over here to the side. If you notice, it's a hyperlink and it takes you directly back to Seesaw, where this activity is in the Seesaw library, and all you have to do is save the activity, modify it, change it the way you want it to be, and then you can assign it to your students. Already laid out. And there are over 700 different slides in this collection that have been shared. Easy to use activities in Seesaw. There's also a collection that was made by the Billings Public Schools. It's saved in a Google Sheet, and it is divided out by subject. It works similar to the one I just showed you, but in order to get to the activity, you would go here where the link is. It tells you the topic, the subject area, some other information, and then when you click on it, here's one the librarians might want to look at for Project Lead the Way. It'll open a teacher link to the activity, and then all you have to do is save it, modify it, change it however you want, and it's ready to use with your class. We would like to encourage you to share activities as well. I hope that you know that when you're finished with an activity, I can get back to my library, you can share with each other very easily by copying the link to that activity. This is one Erin shared with me earlier this week, and I went ahead and shared it to the library. So if I click on share activity, I can copy it, a link, and send it to an email, through an email to another friend of mine. I could share it on Facebook or social media, which I wouldn't share this one because I didn't make it. But then you can also share to your school and district library. So this one has already been shared, I think, and you just have to pick what grade levels is it appropriate for, what subject it fits into, and then which libraries to share it to. I think as a teacher at one school, you would only have the option of sharing it to your school library or the district library. But since I have access to all the libraries in the school, when I share, it goes to all of them. So this one is already in the district library if you're interested in using quizzes as a game.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure.
With this particular activity, it's more of a framework when they want to put their own quizzes link in. If they assign it as is, then it would be sending their kids my review game and their scores would come to me, not to that teacher.
Okay, that would be a good thing to know. Thank you, Erin. So they would want to copy and edit and change the link in this up here at the top in the multimedia link. Is that right, Erin?
Yeah, so they could make a copy, like for example, if they were doing Eureka Module 1 assessment soon, then I found that on quizzes, but I assigned it to my class as homework on quizzes. So the specific link in this one is like my homework assignment. Okay. So they would have to go to quizzes and generate their own homework link and put it in that multimedia section.
So they set it up in quizzes first.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But I shared it so that they wouldn't have to redo the directions part in Seesaw.
Wonderful. Well, we're hoping that lots of teachers will add activities to the school libraries. It helps make it easier for all of us. I did put a comment in here about the new update. I know that we have been trying to figure out when this will happen. It was listed to happen in September. It said mid-September from the Seesaw page. I looked on my iPad yesterday and it says that my iPad app updated to 7.5, but these features are not showing up yet. When I was talking with Donna Wells this morning before the sessions began, she mentioned that the same thing sort of happened this summer, that Seesaw watches to see if people have updated to their newest version, and then what would happen is Seesaw has to actually turn it on or make these changes live. So this is where I talked about the fact that there would now be, when they turn it on, the activities would have a calendar that would show the items that were posted as an assignment or an activity that day. Teachers can pin one activity to the top of their activity feed, which maybe you want to post your daily check-in at the top so it stays up at the top all the time. And then you can also pin one post at the top of your journal feed. And I don't know what particular post you would want, but that's one feature that we should have soon. If you haven't already filled out the Google form, you need to do that so that you get credit. And if you attended both Seesaw sessions today, we need you to fill that form out twice. And one time pick the 101 course and one time pick the 201 course. And I hate to say we are out of time, so I did not get a whole lot of chance to answer questions. If you want to go ahead and speak out loud and ask questions, I'm gonna stop my share so I can look at the questions that were sent in, and maybe we can help cover at least some of those now. So go ahead and ask questions. I am looking quickly at what's
Christine, there was a question about using Lexia skill builders as an interactive in Seesaw.
If I can interject, I started making that, but I haven't shared it yet because I'm debating whether or not I'm adding voice directions to all of those pages.
And that's, remind me, that's what like it prints out specific things for each kid? Is that right?
That's usually like they've completed level 5, so here's some review stuff from that level.
Okay, so then you could assign it to each kid that supposedly finished level 5.
Yes, like I have the skill builders imported into Seesaw, but I haven't finished yet because I haven't decided if I'm putting voice directions or just letting the kids or their parents read the directions.
Okay.
Because each skill builder has like 20 pages.
Well, I've seen some teachers printing them for the students actually coming to school, so I wondered how you would share it. I would hate to have to share it individually, but if it goes along with all the students that finished a certain section, that would work. And I guess that would be a way the virtual teachers could actually use it instead of making copies and trying to get those picked up by the families. So I guess Erin would be willing to share at some point, right?
Yeah, especially if somebody else helps put the voice in it. I've made them for the first 11 levels of Lexia, but it doesn't have any, like it's got voice directions in the directions on Seesaw, but when they actually open the worksheets don't read to them.
Okay, well, share those with me, Erin. I'll help you.
Okay.
Okay, what are some of the other questions? Anybody else? How do I find certain teachers' activities in Seesaw? I think you can search by the teacher if they've shared it. So let me try that. So if I go, got to get my Zoom out of the way. I go back to the activity library. I'm pretty sure I can search a certain person. I will be honest with you, I wouldn't search for me in the community. And I know a few other people that do post quite a bit. We don't usually send things to the community. A lot of what we're using is school district specific. So we don't want to post to the community because we would be breaking copyright. But I think you can just search name, like, and then I would see the things that
She finishes that.
Erin, do these look familiar to you?
No, I don't generally post to the community because a lot of the stuff that I make is like Letterland or HMH or
Well,
Lexia
but if you look,
specific.
I'm searching the school district. That doesn't make sense. I wonder if I have to pick Salem. No. I know that Erin shares a lot of hers through Google Docs or collections in folders, but let's try me. I don't know. That's a good question. I've never, nope.
I've had some success with it in the community to be able to put like Chris Sanger's name or something.
Yeah. I do know that if you, can't you click on in the school district or the community, if you click on the person instead? Does that make sense? Nope.
Okay, so I've got 2, 4, 6, 9.
It keeps taking me back to the community, doesn't it? All right. Sorry, I can't answer that one at this point. We'll have to do a little more research. Any other questions? Organizations.
Christine, there was some questions about can you import skills and how to pull basic kindergarten skills into the skills instead of creating their own.
Instead of typing them. I do not know that at this point, but we can find out. I think I remember something about being able to import them, but I don't know if it has to be like an ITF sending files into the Seesaw. I'd have to look into that one too, unless you or Donna know more than I do. It is, I'll be honest, it is a sort of a pain to add the activities or the skills. And I usually
we-
do it. I usually do it. I don't do a whole bunch at once. I do the ones that I make the activity and then I decide what skills to add to that activity, but then it stays in my collection.
We both were saying we thought we saw something about that, the ability to import skills, but I think, like you said, it's something we're going to have to investigate and check into. And then if we find it, we'll share it out.
Okay.
Is there a way that we can make the skill builders interactive with Seesaw and Seesaw?
Is that the skill builders from Lexia? Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, Erin Moody and I we were talking about that a little bit. She started to build them for first grade and I've offered to help her. If somebody, I don't think I have a login to Lexia yet. Do we, Teresa or Donna? Somebody would have to share the skill builders with me.
Right. No,
I-
we don't have access to that yet.
I can download the PDFs for all the levels if you want. What I did is I downloaded the PDFs and then I deleted any page that had some kind of like cut and paste type thing. And then the rest of them, I just imported the PDF into Seesaw.
Okay, well now
Does
I
that allow the kids to interact with it and mark on Seesaw?
Yes.
yeah, any PDF or picture you put into Seesaw into an activity, they can write on and use all the tools. So I don't mind building, like you said, Erin, a generic one that doesn't have videos for all the levels. But the teachers would have to modify it and add their own directions after I build it. If you'll share those with me, Erin. Which I think she will.
Yes, I'm sending the email now.
Okay, anything else?
Thanks, Christine. Lots of great information. Anybody that needs extra assistance or questions or help, just let your ITF know.
There was something on here about when is the new update going to happen? We don't know. We have sent a question into the district support for Seesaw, and then I've also posted to the Facebook group to Angela Seesaw on the Facebook group, but I haven't heard any answer about that yet. But we will let you know. And thank you for participating, and I will get back to you on the answers to some of the questions. Please make sure and sign in to both sessions that you attended on the Google form. Teresa and Donna, thanks for your help, and Erin. I appreciate it.